The other part of the real estate story, the huge real estate story, is that home prices are falling throughout the state of Florida. Getting into a house isn't getting any easier though. High mortgage rates, you have scarce affordable rentals, and soaring insurance costs are keeping many would-be buyers firmly on the sidelines. Housing on Florida's West Coast is more complicated than just high prices or steep mortgage rates. The typical Tampa Bay home sold for about $362,000 in June, nearly 6% lower than this same time last year. And statewide inventory is up by about 24%. Despite falling prices, buyers still can't afford to get in. Renters are seeing little relief as well. Over the past decade, Florida lost nearly 60% of rental units priced under $1,000 a month. New construction data shows a focus on high-end luxury apartments, leaving fewer affordable options. And insurance adds another layer of expense. Florida's property insurance market just posted its best year since 2015. This is a report just out from Florida's Office of Insurance Regulation. For the first time in a decade, insurers collected more in premiums than they paid in claims. This despite 3 hurricanes, Debbie, Helene, and Milton. State lawmakers credit reforms made in 2022 for bringing more companies into the market, but premiums remain among the highest in the nation. In Tampa Bay, home insurance accounted for nearly 15% of a typical mortgage payment, according to last year's mortgage monitoring data. And rates are expected to go up 9% by the end of this year. Insurance companies pin blame on hurricane risks and costly reinsurance, also known as insurance for insurance companies. Complaints from policyholders also at all-time highs. So the inventory is up, but the affordability is down. What is the disconnect? Jacob, I'd like to start with you as co-author of Axios. You've reported on this, written about this extensively. What is the disconnect? What is fueling that?
Right. So, I mean, there was this great migration that happened during the pandemic, and home prices spiked at that time. And what we've seen is because of all these kind of different, what we call hidden costs to homeownership, and all these news of hurricanes and things of that nature have led less people to move here. And then, with remote work being phased out, less people are able to move here. Mm-hmm. And so what we've seen is the prices have fallen, but some people bought during the pandemic. And so now they're at risk at selling at a loss. And I think, we reported on this one study that found that there were $24,000 of hidden home ownership cost. And that can be from maintenance, from aging properties, mm-hmm. Electricity bills, which electricity rates in Florida are up 10% from this time mm-hmm. last year. So there's a bunch of these different kind of hidden cost of home ownership that's happening. I think what's really interesting though is Hillsborough County, right, one of the most populous counties in the Tampa Bay region, mm-hmm. They've recently ended their Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Which was responsible for building some affordable housing units in Hillsborough. And so I think that's kind of interesting because it's kind of a pivot away from this issue that many find to be very pertinent right now.
How are the issue of investors and second home buyers factoring in this?
Right. The Tampa Bay Times has reported on these investors who have been buying up the Bay. I think that's actually the name of the series. And mm-hmm. we've kind of seen that happening a lot, and also I think that what's really preventing some people from entering in the market is these kind of inequities that are prevalent right now in terms of income, mm-hmm. And all these kinds of different things that are serving as barriers into home ownership. And what we've seen is more luxury renters. We've also seen wealthier renters, people who are forgoing home ownership because of all these costs, mm-hmm. and are choosing to rent. But that's also meaning that rents are going to go higher because these people can afford to pay them.
Daryl, how much of this is impacted by policy versus factors in the market, like mortgage rates, supply and demand, maybe the type of homes that are being built?
Well, I think a lot of it is affected by the long-term situation that you have to look at in housing. You're talking about housing costs themselves. They're down about 6% over the past year in the Tampa Bay area. The average price of a home in the Tampa Bay area is about $362,000. However, when you look at the value of a house, so to speak, as an investment, as many people do look at their house as their biggest investment that they ever make in their life, housing values are up in the Tampa Bay area 52% over pre-pandemic prices. So there's been a big rise there in the value of a house. So if you just look at it in the past year, you can say, well, my house has gone down $6,000. I've got to sell. You know, that's a stupid move, just like it is with stocks. You know, if the stocks go down sometimes, yeah, you've got to think long term. And overall, housing has been a very good investment, and it still is a very good investment. So I think all individuals are going to have to judge their decision on housing as a long-term decision. And what's the best thing for me to do?
Divya, school quality is something that you've covered as you're the education reporter. How does that impact when families are coming into a neighborhood and picking out where they're going to invest their dollars?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, especially with school choice kind of becoming a bigger issue. And I think kind of determining where you live and you know, where you can go is a huge question that's like people are thinking about.
Yeah, Wendy, more and more people are moving further away. How do you see this playing out? Is it more difficult for young professionals? Seem to be the ones that are really being squeezed as they try to purchase that first home.
They're trying very hard to purchase, but sometimes they have to get further and further away from our town centers to be able to afford what they can at this time. And schools always come into play. When you get a family that relocates here and doesn't know anything about the area, they've typically done their research before they get to town. They know where they want to be, and they have to see if that house fits within their budget.